going on, everyone? It's Bowles, and welcome back to another episode of the Weekend Forecast. Apologies for the wait. I just had a couple of things to do before went live. So, yeah, apologies for that. But anyway, thank you for joining me again today for another episode. If you are watching if you're new around here, make sure you leave a subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Very much appreciate all the help is always very much appreciated again. And if you're enjoying the content, leave a like on the video. So let's get stuck straight into the weekend forecast, shall we? So again, no Thursday night footy, which is still a little bit of a shame. I wish we had Thursday night footy because I always enjoy watching Thursday nights. But anyway, we'll get stuck into the game tonight anyway. So we've got St Kilda Carlton is the game coming up tonight at Marvel Stadium. So the ins for St Kilda. So you got excuse me. So just getting focused here, right? So you got Hunter Clark, Jack Higgins, Tom Highmore, and Ron Marshall come into the squad for St Kilda. Oscar Claverino, Nick Caulfield, Paul Hunter, Cooper Sharman, and Jack Sinclair all out. Jack Sinclair injured. All the other ones are out as we've been dropped. And Carlton, couple big ins for them. So Charlie Curnow comes into the side for the first time in a couple of years. So it'd be good to see him play a game. Hopefully he can stay fit and have a good sort of finish here because obviously he's a great player from what we've seen anyway. Josh Honey comes in. I don't know if he's making his debut. I don't know if he's been sub or something before, but didn't come up saying debut on the AFL app, so I'm not sure. But anyway, he comes in 170k mid-forward. You can potentially look at Harry Mckay comes in, which I'm surprised he came in. They said that he wasn't probably going to be right for this game. And Lockie O'Brien come in. Eddie Betts out injured. Matt Cottrell, Mark Murphy, Sam Petreski-Seaton, and then Zach Williams is injured as well. So players in this game to watch, I think off the bat, he is now the most traded in player for the week is Ryan Marshall. 584k, pretty low. I think it's breaking even like 50 something, I'm pretty sure. Good option to bring in. Is good cover if you've got Grundy and Gorn for one, as being a forward ruck that you can potentially rely on to come in and replace one of those guys if something happened to one of them in the last 4 weeks. You could put him there and not have to waste it, and you could just bring in someone on another line. But he's also good. He's underpriced option to bring in your forward line. He got 122 before he had to miss last week, so he went to the rugby, which was an exposure site. So he had to obviously miss last week and do the 14-day quarantine or whatever. But 122, there's also rumours Ryder could be out tonight. So that's another thing. So he might be the solo ruck tonight. So he could be an option to bring in. Hunter Clark is another guy I'm keeping an eye on. Really cheap. He's about 522, I think it was last time I checked, or somewhere around there. Breaking in 132, obviously, because last time he played, obviously, that was when he broke his jaw with the Mcrae. Mcrae getting mixed up. Dave Mckaye with that incident. He was averaging, I think, about around just a tick under 80 before that injury affected game. We know he's a better player than a guy that's about 500k. He can average 80 plus, especially for very cash-strapped coach. Because I know there's a lot out there, myself included, that you don't have a lot of guys on your bench you can downgrade to get guys like Took Miller and Jack Steele and Tom Mitchell and guys like that in. So you're going to have to get a few guys a bit cheaper. And Hunter Clark could be an option there next week if we see something. You wouldn't bring him in this week. It'd be really ballsy and you're going to lose a little bit of money. But he could potentially be an option that you could look at bringing in. And Sam Walsh, I cursed him like I did with Clayton Oliver. I brought Clayton Oliver in. He went 4 of his next 5, not scoring 100. Bring Sam Walsh in for 839k, whatever it was, and he gets a 72. So hopefully, I expect a big bounce back from tonight. Does he get tagged by a Dunstan or Steele? I don't think he does. I think he can handle a tag. I think last week he just didn't get a lot of the ball, and he gave away 5 free kicks as well, which didn't help. But I think he'll be back tonight. I think he'll get a 110 odd score, and I think he'll be fine. So hopefully he is, and hopefully I didn't screw him over for everyone else. So there you go. So Western Bulldogs and Adelaide at Mars Stadium. It's 11:50 my time, so 12:20 for everyone else. It's a very weird time. The games on the Saturday are very weird. They're overlapping and whatever. It's just weird. But anyway, so Bulldogs, they bring in Josh Dunkley and Easton Woods, 2 big ins for them. Taylor DeRay's been managed. Alex Keith injured, and Richards is also injured. And then the Crows bring in Nick Murray and Jimmy Rowe, and Billy Frampton, Dave Mckay, and Lockie Scholl are all out of the side. So a couple players in this game watching. So Dunkley, mid forward, obviously came back 2 weeks ago. Got, I think, an 83 and 82 against Gold Coast. Missed last week again. Similar Marshall except he just went to a coffee shop and it was an exposure shot and he had to miss 14 days. So that was unlucky. Imagine getting coffee and then saying, you can't play for a couple of weeks, you're an exposed site. So, but over 800K, could you do it? I don't think he could do it this week. I think he's got to break in about 130. So if he goes down close to under 800K, like 790, 780, he could be a nice pod, only owned by 9.7% of coaches. A lot of those coaches would have been probably brought him in, just haven't touched their team, or they brought him in the start, they haven't touched it. I doubt a lot of people would have kept him, obviously, when he had the shoulder injury, unless you're playing like a keeper league or something, or if your classic team is like if your classic team is you're just playing for league and you just like, I'll keep him because he'll probably come out for the last few weeks of the season. So that could have been potentially an option that you could have done, but not many coaches would have done that. No one at the top, I don't think, has got him. Maybe one or two people took the risk and brought him in. And then he missed last week, but could be an option. Jett Mccrazy back, 138 last week. Funny enough, he's only got 5 scores this year over 120, and he's got nothing between 120 and 129. It's either 130 plus or it's under 120. So it's a bit of a weird year, and obviously 3 of his last 4 have been under 100. Last week, obviously, with the 138 was good. I think putting a VC on him this week's a good option because he's playing the Crows. And Crows do give up a lot of points. I wouldn't imagine Schoenberg's going to tag Mcrae. Maybe Schoenberg could go to Liberatore because we've seen that work in the past with Harms going to him. So that might be what he does. You're not going to tag Bont. You can't tag Bont. So Mcrae could be an option for a potential Schoenberg tag, but I doubt it. I think he's a good VC option, and it's a free hit at the end of the day with a VC. Rory Laird, Mr. Consistent. 9 of his last 10 games over 115. The only game was a 75 against Richmond. That was a weird score. I don't know why he got only 75. Season high of 142 last week. Hit a couple of goals as well, which you don't usually see from Lairdy. Should have followed my gut and put him captain. I was going to put him captain, and then I said, I'm going to go Merritt, and I'll just enjoy watching Laird normally. And I would have won my matchup, and I would have probably got close to 2,300 because I got about 2,100, I think, last week, and would have got close to that because I'd let Merritt captain. So, yeah, not great. And Bulldogs are quite tough. That's why I'm not as bullish on Laird captain this week. But then again, Petrarca and Oliver did both get 126 last week. So again, VC option. He's at the moment he's as safe as anyone to put as a VC. You could chuck him on a VC and see what he does, and he could get another good score. So for me, it's out of Mcrae and Laird who I'm doing because they're the earlier game, and I'm probably going into a goal like Oliver or something like that. Going against the grain a bit and going against Gorn. But and then Harry Schoenberg, sneaky underpriced option there, breaking, I think, 28. Last 3 scores, 83, 113, 96. He's about 5, I think he's like 520 something, I think, 520 odd K. Especially for cash-strapped coaches, his role's changed. He got the Rising Star last week. Bulldogs, tough game again. It's down in Ballarat. I probably personally wouldn't. I'd say the 50 can probably get a Jeremy Sharp instead. Jeremy Sharp is a guy that I'm looking potentially at bringing in this week, even at 474. I know it's ridiculous, but he's just scoring too well. He's just scoring that well that I think on his worst day at the moment, he looks like he'll get an 80 on his worst. And for 474K, could help with a lot. But yeah, I wouldn't pay the extra 50K for Schoenberg. But if you've already got Sharp, Schoenberg could be a guy that you could look at potentially. But yeah, so there are a couple of guys around that price that I've looked at, and Schoenberg's probably has had the best sort of run of the last 3 games. So it could be an option to bring in. North Melbourne, Geelong at Blundstone Arena. This game's like, 50 minutes after the Crows game starts and the Bulldogs game, which is really weird. But so Eddie Ford, another 170K player is coming in. Jack Marnie and Robbie Tarrant are into the side. Sean Atley's been dropped. Obviously, Ben Cunnington's obviously out with the testicular cancer tumor that they caught during the week. So hopefully he his recovery goes well with that. Sad to hear about that. Taron Thomas with the concussion, and then Cam Zerha's also injured. So a few big outs there for North Melbourne. They get obviously Robbie Tarrant back in, but they lose Cunnington, Thomas, and Zerha. So, and then Geelong, Sean Higgins comes into the side, and then Lockie Henderson and Graham Myers both out injured. So, a couple of changes for Geelong there. So Aaron Hall in this game, he's been insane this year, averaging. Can you believe it? So he's averaging 105.4 this year, right? So if you take out the game where he was sub and the game where he was concussed, funny enough, against Geelong when he was on like 30-something a quarter, 35 a quarter time, right? He's averaging 117.1 this season, right? there's only 3 players that can better that this year that for full season averages. So Took Miller averaging about 122, Jack Steele averaging about 120, and Jett Mccrazy averaging 117.1 as well. The exact same as Aaron Hall. So ridiculous. He's been so good. I think he's only got really one score under 98 in 4 games he's played, which was an 88. I think that was against Gold Coast, I think, when they actually won. And funny enough, when North Melbourne win, he doesn't usually score as well. But when North Melbourne don't win, he scores great. And I think Geelong win. So you'd probably say Hall's going to be great. But Geelong have been really tough on defenders this season to score against. Could be a risky play to make him captain, but it could be. It's risky also to put in VC because you've got some other decent options. But with Hall, with what he's been able to do, I think it is a decent shout as well. He could be pretty good this week, regardless if Geelong don't give up points to defenders. And the other player I'm looking at this game, very underrated player. I don't hear anyone talking about him in terms of the forwards. Isaac Smith. No one talks about him, and I would probably put him as the 6th best forward. Like, I know that you've got like Dunkley, Zorko, Aaron Hall if you want to put him there, Zeeble if you want to put him there as well, Lockie Hunter, Jordan DeGoey, but you might put like a Hall or Zeeble in your defence, and then you probably put Isaac Smith as your 6th best because he's averaging about 91 for the year. He's got 90 plus in 12 of his 18 games this year and only 1 score under 70. So 5 of the 6 scores under 90 are between 70 and 89. His consistency is great. He plays in a great team. He takes a couple of kick-ins a game as well. So at 654K, if you've got a few of those main guys already in your team, just Mozzie there. If you've got a few guys already in your team, like if you've already got like DeGoey and Dangerfield and all these guys, I think Isaac Smith is a decent option to potentially bring into your side. So I'm looking at him, probably not this week, but maybe in the last couple of weeks, I'm probably not going to be able to afford guys like 900K unless I do something crazy. So I might have to look at these guys at 659. Isaac Smith's definitely one of them. Gold Coast, Melbourne, Metricon Stadium. This game's at 2:40. So it's weird times. I'm so used to having the my time 1:15 the first game, 1:40 the second game, 4:05, and then 6:55 or 7:10 is the night games. Obviously for other people, it's obviously half an hour behind. So 1:45, 2:10, and whatever. But yes. Really weird time. But Jai Farah comes back into the side. So if you've got him on your bench, there you go. But he's a lot of money. So I'd probably hope that you probably moved him on by now. Maybe injuries have stopped that. But Joel Jeffrey coming in to make his debut. Darcy McPherson and Zach Smith coming to the side. Rory Atkins dropped. Will Brodie, Caleb Graham both dropped as well. Oleg Markov, obviously the hamstring injury. He's probably out for the remainder of the year. Maybe comes back for last game or two. And then Isaac Rankin's been dropped as well. Melbourne, Jack Bowie comes in to make his debut. He's about 230K, probably a little bit too expensive to bring him in. Michael Hibbard and Jimmy Jordan have both been dropped. So Jimmy Jordan a bit stiff there to get dropped. He's been good this year. But yeah, so anyway, if you want to leave a question below as well, leave them in the live chat or leave them in the comments below. I'll get to them. And yeah, so there you go. So Jeremy Sharp, could you bring him in at 474K? I'm thinking of doing it. So it's not crazy at all. He's got 123, 112 back-to-back games. And I was talking to mate Ryan on the phone before came live, and he's played 2 pretty difficult teams to score against. He's played Western Bulldogs and Brisbane, who have been restrictive at times and haven't allowed many players to get big scores. Jeremy Sharp's like a rookie in essence, but now he's probably into that mid-price, obviously range now. And he's got Melbourne this week, who have been giving up some points lately, and then he's got Carlton next week at Marvel. So and he's got Essendon at Metron staying the week after, or Marvel won the 2. But his next 3 games, if you don't have a lot of money, I'm potentially thinking about going Pendlebury down to him to make 130K, and I can put that. I might keep Stocker, see how he goes. If he doesn't do enough, I can go Houston to someone, or I can do something. I can go I can do something like Pendlebury down to Sharp, and I can go Houston to Sidebottom, for example, or Houston to Marshall. I can do something like that. It probably wouldn't be Marshall because he played tonight, and I want to see how Stocker would go doing that. Because if Stocker didn't do down and get someone on field instead of Stocker, so maybe someone like Bianco. But -3 break even for Sharp as well. It's all even more. We've got a couple of guys there that I'll talk about later that are about 530, 540. That if for some reason Sharp you brought him in and he didn't do enough, you can make a little move because his break even is -3. So if you've got a 50 and you want to move him on, you could. I don't think he'd get a 50 anyway, to be honest. But then again, I could curse him like I do with every player I bring in. But if he got like a 50, probably be like 500, he'd probably go up a bit. And then you can sideways swap him to someone if you get 100K. Like it's I don't think it's a bad play at all. So I'm considering doing that this week. Joel Jeffrey making his debut for the Suns, kicked 9 goals last week with 146 in the VFL. If you want a 170K guy, I think he's not a bad option. I'd probably prefer James Peatling, from the Giants. Has got averaging 99 or whatever in his last 5 games in the VFL, but I'll talk about him in a sec when I get to that game. Braden Fearing, another interesting option, 724K, 142 last week, season high for him. We know what he's capable of. He's capable of getting 120s regularly when he's got the role. And it looks like he's got the role at the moment with Greenwood and guys like that out of the team at the moment. Breaking to 58. So if you're not looking even to, I'd be bringing him in thinking he's going to be there for the rest of the year because he's scoring that well, and you've probably got a few other problems to fix up. But if you're in a good position, you bring him in, right? You can bring him in for 3 weeks, and then you can probably afford maybe a guy like Tom Mitchell or someone out of range that's like 880 that fearing he could rise at 800K, you could pay 100K and you can get a better midfielder in potentially if you've got nothing else to do in the last couple of weeks. That is a play because his break-even's 58, gets 100, he's probably 750 plus next week. So yeah, that's just something to consider as well. Max Gorn, good captain option this week. 56 hitouts last week. That's a season high for him. Played over 90% of the ruck time. Is this going to be the norm with Melbourne prepping for finals? Potentially. Zach Smith coming the side isn't as obviously good of a matchup as having Caleb Graham and Chris. I was about to say Darren Burgess. That's the defence coach. Used to be at Port and now at Melbourne. Chris Burgess, right? But even when they're coming in, I think it's still a great matchup. I personally don't think I can do it because I've been burnt by rucks too many times this year. I think I've only had 2 good scores from rucks this year, and that was Gorn against the Crows, and that I think Gorn twice as VC, so it wasn't even as captain as VC, right? And Grundy with his 139 against Port when they didn't have Lycett, I think when it was just Laddams. So yeah, but then again, no good rucks. So you think Gorn's probably put him down for 40 hitouts. So yeah, I think it's a good captain option. I think it's a great captain option. I'm just very worried myself. That's just personally my opinion. Clayton Oliver is who I'd be personally maybe going over him. Back-to-back 126s. Looks to be back between rounds 12 and 7. Only obviously got the 100, which is the 104. Obviously, I've had him since round 12, so I've only had a couple of good scores the last couple of weeks. But looks like he's back. 775K, brilliant option to bring in if you're looking for a midfielder around that price. If you're asking me who would you rather over Fiorini or Clayton Oliver, I'd probably rather Oliver just because Oliver's got the runs on the board. But if you can't afford Oliver, obviously Fiorini's not a bad option either. And if you want to include Guthrie in there, I think I'd still just rather Oliver. Guthrie's been good though. He does get back and get a few of those +6s. So Collingwood West Coast, MCG, the Twilight game. So Will Hoskin-Elliott, Jeremy Howe comes back into the side. First game, I think since round 4 or 5. Chris Mayne and Josh Thomas come back into the side. Out Mason Cox, Nathan Murphy, Scott Penderby, obviously with a fractured leg, out for the rest of the season. Caleb Poulter and Anton Toyo have both been dropped as well. And for West Coast, Jack Petruccelli and Jack Redden come into the side. Jared Brander is out as a medi sub. Mark Hutchings and Liam Ryan is also out injured as well. So guys, I'm looking at this game. So still side bottom. 596K, got an 88 last week. Looked to move back in the midfield. I think he had about 13 of the 20-something centre bounces. But after second quarter, he did score a lot better than the first quarter. I think first quarter was pretty quiet, but then after that, he scored decent. I don't think it's been disappointing, obviously, because he usually is that guy averaged 100 plus year in, year out, right? And now the fact that he's going to be in the midfield, maybe he does average that 100 plus for the rest of the year, right? So 596K, good option to bring in. Penderbury being out for the year as well does obviously help. Finlay Mcrae, next guy I'm going to talk about as well. Obviously, Finlay Mcrae, 224K, got 71 last week. He moved in the midfield last week and looked pretty good. 224K. Would I pay for that over him and Durham? Would I pay that 54K over like a James Peatling? It's hard. It depends what situation you're in. If you need a player on your bench potentially to loophole, I think Finlay, Mcrae, and Durham are the options to go for. But if you're looking for, at this stage, we've only got 4 weeks left, so we've only got 8 trades left. you want to be maximising as much money as possible on your field. So I think that the option of your Peatlings and stuff like that is a better option purely because you get the 50K more. Because all you need after this week is 3 rookies. It's probably 3 rookies on your bench to go down and then upgrade someone on your field. And if you've got a couple of people there you make 100K off of, I think you can just go get the 170K guy because Durham's got a break in -8. I think Durham, him or Finlay Mcrae is probably the option. Durham could be over 300K within 2 weeks, and you could make a bit of coin there. But yeah, I'd probably still go the 170K rookie personally myself. But Durham, not a bad player. And Finlay Mcrae as well. He's got a good role, but the breaking to 22 means he's not going to rise as significantly in price as probably a Durham will in the next week and next couple of weeks. Maybe over the next 4 weeks he might rise more in price. But yeah, and Andrew Gaff, he's back. He's back. Head tilt. He's back. My boy. Good to see him get back-to-back 110s, 113, 114. 675K he is now. Ridiculous. I paid like 830 at the start of the year for him, and everyone knows the story. I could have had Jack Steele over him, but anyway, we'll just move past that. But yeah, you save 100K essentially because he's usually priced over 775K. He's usually 770 to 830, usually ranging somewhere around there normally, right? You're saving 100K by getting him now, and he's got a good run for the rest of the year as well. The Brisbane game in the last round as well isn't as bad now. We're seeing some people in the last few weeks score against Brisbane. So, but yeah, I think he'll have a good into the year, and I think he's a good option to bring in, especially if you can't afford guys over 700. So look at him. Essendon, Sydney at the Gabba Saturday night. Would have loved this game to be tonight, but I think with the 5-day thing, the AFLPA wouldn't allow them to play or something like that, something around that anyway. But Dylan Clark, Aaron Francis, Cole Langford come into the side for Essendon. Matt Guelphy, Braden Ham, Cale Hooker and David Zaharakis are all out of the side. Harry Cunningham and Callum Mills is back. Great to see him back in the side. Hayden McLean is out along with Ben Ronk and James Rowbottom. So, as I said before, Sam Durham, -8 break even, 221K. Do you pay the 51 extra K for someone on your bench? Depends what situation you're in. As I said before, if you're wanting a guy that you can loophole on the field, potentially you could bring Durham in. But if you're looking for money, I think you go the 170K options. There's a lot of 170K guys to bring in. There's a lot of making their debut this week. As long as you've got an emergency on each line as well, that's the best thing. Zach Merritt, Darcy Parish, they both need to bounce back this week. Terrible last week. Merritt was 64, but he did get 67. I don't know if you saw, but they actually added a mark. When I watched the game, he took an intercept mark and he kicked it straight away. And I thought, that's a mark. And I thought I had the whistle, right? But they updated that after all the fantasy stuff had been sort of finalised, so they couldn't actually add it to matchup. So if you lost your matchup by 3 points or less and you had him captain, or if you had him in the side and he was unique, you would have actually won technically based on his score. Because if you look at the AFL app, he got 67. But anyway, just if you didn't know that little fact there. And Parish only got 69. So does either one of them get the Hewitt tag? I think so. I'm leaning towards Parish getting the tag just because we've seen Parish has been very susceptible to the tag, but Merritt is probably regarded by coaches as a more damaging player in terms of history. But then again, Parish has been really damaging this year. So I don't know who gets the tag. Maybe they don't tag him, or maybe they just put Josh Kennedy and Luke Parker head to head with them and just say let's see who's the better midfield is. Maybe. But I wouldn't put either captain. But hopefully they both bounce back this week if you've got them. Callum Mills back this week after his quarantine. So averaging 109.4 this year. I think he wants to get led for that number one defender spot. And Lairds, I think, about 2 points in terms of average ahead of Mills. So very, very close. And if you've got Mills and Laird, we've got to enjoy them for the last 4 weeks because next year they're going to be straight mids and there aren't going to be many people that have those two. Laird could be an option as a mid for next year based purely on his consistency and how good he's been. But a lot of people probably won't. They'll go for like your Tom Mitchells, your Jack Steeles, your Took Millers, your Bonampellis, guys like that next year that your big uber premiums. Even though I think Mills and Laird are. Jake Lloyd, great option if you end up bringing this week. Could average 105, 110 for the rest of the year, realistically. Got 4 great matchups. Essendon give up a ton of marks. Yeah, like the last 3 weeks, I had a look. Every defender essentially took over 7 marks in each team. So they do get a truckload of marks. Hasn't gone below 90 in his last 4. Could be a good option to bring in. And I'm certainly looking at bringing him in as well this week. He's in the calculations. And at the moment, I've got him in. But with the Sharp thing, that might change, just depending. Because Sharp could score just as much as Lloyd this week. That's definitely possible. So Hawthorne, Brisbane. So I'll go to the Sunday game. So I'll go to the app here and I'll get the final teams. They came in about 8 minutes ago. So I'll go through the teams and I'll go through the games and we'll get into some questions. So Hawthorne. So Connor Nash comes into the side. James Cousins is out injured and Jacob Kazitsky's been rested. So, good. Tyler Brotman holds his spot. For me, which is good. I thought he might have got dropped. But yeah, at least they're persisting with him, which they should have done all year. But anyway, Devon Robertson is out, has been dropped for Brisbane. So if you've got him floating around on your bench, I'd be obviously need to be looking at plans for him as well. And then GWS and Port Adelaide. James Peatle comes in to make his debut, which was obviously named earlier on today. And Toby Green comes in. And then you've got Jake Riccardi's out as a Medi sub. Adam Kennedy's injured, and Tanner Bruin has been dropped. And then for Port, Orazio Fantasia comes in, so it's good in for Port. And then Sam Mays and Boyd Woodcock have both been dropped. And then for Freo and Richmond, the final game of the round, Josh Treacy, Joel Weston comes back in, so he's quite cheap. So another really cheap option to bring in. And Toby Watson come in. And then you've got Alex Pearce is out injured. Now, Fyfe's out injured. Connor Blakely's out as a Medi sub, and Walters out injured as well. Dion Prestia comes in for Richmond, so good in for them. And then Josh Caddy out as a Medi sub, and Marlon Pickett's been managed. And I think I did see something. Was it Nathan Krueger had come in? And is he Geelong? I did see that on the my Twitter feed before I came live. Let me just have a look. I think Nathan Krueger is for Geelong. And just depend. Nathan Krueger. Late inclusion to the side taking on North. So who's out for Geelong then in that? Let me have a quick look at that because it could be someone of note. Geelong has made note change. Nathan Krug comes in replacing Mark O'Connor, who is out with knee soreness. Francis Evans comes in as an emergency. So it's funny because there's not really anyone that would be tagged for North Melbourne this week for the O'Connor thing to potentially be an issue. But yeah, so Nathan Krug comes in as well. So in terms of the players from the game, so from the first game, which was the Hawthorne-Brisbane game, I think Tom Mitchell and Jared Lyons, they're the only two real people I'm looking at in this game. They both should be big. Tom Mitchell, obviously, Brisbane did give up some points last week. Fiorini got 142, Took got 127, Jeremy Shark got 112, and Jack Steele a few weeks ago got 138. So Mitchell could go big at Pig Park and could be a very good fullback option. And Jared Lyons, good sneaky captain option as well. Averaging 113.8 this year, 136 last week. He's just very consistent. If he gets a bad score, it's an 80 plus, and usually more often than not, he gets you hundreds. He's only gone like 4 times under 100 this year. Only owned by 5.8%. So very good differential. Could potentially be a league-winning differential player in your matchup because he's got an amazing run for the. His last 4 games. I think his last 4 games are just absolutely insane in terms of how easy they are. So Jared Lyons, his last 4 games of the year is Hawthorne at Utah Stadium, great matchup. Freo at Optus, Collingwood at the Gabba, and then West Coast at the Gabba. That is 4 amazing matchups. He could average 120 plus for the remainder of the year. So would you save 100K and go Lyons over a guy like Miller? Potentially. So there you go. It could be an option. But Jared Lyons, great player, and could be a good option to bring into your side and win your matchup. Giants, Port, Whitfield, great option to bring in. He's now the second most traded player this week. Marshall's overtaken him, but 710K, 132 last week's season high. That's the thing with Whitfield. If he gets injured or concussed, the first week back, he either gets a 60 or a 70, or he goes 120 plus. And he got 132 last week, high score for the year. Port can be restrictive against some players. They have given up some points to wingers I've seen over the year. But Whitfield does play defence, so maybe it's not. Port are restricted, so maybe it sort of works in that. But great option to bring in. He's top 6 defender when he's fit and playing. And he should be very good for the rest of the year. Tim Taranto, I'm worried about because he only went to 2 centre bounces last week of the 19. He had guys like Brent Daniels went to 15 of the 19. Josh Kelly went to essentially all of them when this year he was not playing midfield at all. I think Lockie Ash went to some last week. I'm maybe putting it down to it was just for the 1 week to try something different, obviously with matchups and whatever. Callum Ward only went to one as well. Usually it's Ward, Hopper, Taranto, and Josh Kelly, the main four, and Tom Green gets some run in there as well. But maybe this is something we're going to see. Maybe Taranto plays more forward. And at 793, Caleb breaking at 150. If we see that forward roll again, I think we can probably trade him out next week. But I think maybe it's a little bit early. Maybe it's just one game. But some of the good coaches at the top will probably move on him this week, especially with guys that got no rookies. They might go him to Lions for 40K, and bang, you got a top 8 midfielder guaranteed. Whereas Taranto, maybe it's a little bit shaky with that role. I don't know if that CBA thing is going to continue, but I guess we'll see. Only time will tell. You could even go Taranto down to an Isaac Smith or a Rowan Marsh or a Steel Side Bottom or even Jake Lloyd, make yourself over 100K, and that could maybe upgrade a rookie. Just something that you could, at this time of year, if you've got no money on your bench, that could be some things that you can think about. Taranto down to Sharp wouldn't be even. It sounds crazy, but you make 300K from doing that. And are they really going to score? Because usually, as a trader, usually 10 points for about 100K. So every 100K more players, you expect 10 more points, right? Can you guarantee me that Taranto is going to score 30 points more than Jeremy Sharp this week? I can't guarantee that. And I think no. I don't think you will. And Taranto's hasn't got over your 140 for about 3 or 4 weeks. So, and Sharp's been getting you 110. So just something to think about. And that's something I'm maybe thinking about, especially if emergency loopholes work. In the Freo Richmond and the final game. So two underpriced guys I'm looking at here. So Jaden Short will be good anyway. So that's obviously one that you can watch as well. If you want to, if he's been pretty good the last 5 weeks. If you're looking at a defender, maybe someone that could be interesting. But Caleb Sarong has been poor this year. And I know that. So Mcrae does a weekend wash up on DT Talk, has had Sarong all year. And I've seen that, right? He's been pretty poor this year. Not what we thought he would have been based on last year, right? But last week looked a lot better, right? He got 94 points. He went to 23 of the 26 CBAs for Freo, and he spent 83% time on ground, which was his most for the season. I think his previous 5 or 6 weeks had been low 70s, and I think it was a 66% there as well, right? Nat Fife's out, so there's an extra midfield spot there. He 545K, really cheap. I'd prefer him over Schoenberg. Over Sharp, I prefer Sharp if you're looking at an option there. But Sarong is a good option to, I think, bring in. You can watch him this week as well. I think he's got a break of 70. Okay. That's the other guy I forgot for the Lions that came in. So Devin Robertson was dropped, but Nakai Cockatoo came into the side. Okay. There you go. It's probably too expensive. Probably I think it's like 240 or 230. So you're not looking at that now. But if that was early in the year, it'd be great. You'd probably pounce on him. But yeah. But anyway, with Sarong, 545K. Would I rather pay that 40K for Marshall? Yes. Would I rather pay 50K for Side Bottom? Probably yes. But based on Penderbury being out and Sobham's got a track record. But Sarong, if you haven't got over 550K, I'd rather Sarong over Bose, for example, right? Because just an option to consider. Another option to consider at 550K is Dion Prestia. Now, I know what you're going to say. He's injured all the time and all that stuff, right? And I agree. I probably won't do it myself, right? But 550K, he's normally a 95 to 105 guy. If you haven't got a lot of money and you're looking at someone a little bit different in left field, Dion Prestia could be a guy that you could look at. Besides injury, when he does play, he does score well, as I've said. So can you trust him? No. Is he going to stay fit for the last 4 games? Probably not. Well, based on what he does, but hopefully he does. Dion Prestia and Luke Shaw, those two players that are great players, and you want them to stay fit for the year, but they just keep getting an injury after 3 or 4 weeks, right? But you only need him for 3 weeks or 4 weeks because you're probably not getting in this week. If he's fit this week, you're probably only going to need him for 3 weeks. So if he can play well this week, he could be a guy that you could look at. That's certainly an option you could look at. So anyway, let's get into some of your questions. There was a couple of questions here. So we've got one on the live chat. So Christopher, so also if you want to get your questions in, if you're watching live, make sure you leave them in live chat. And also subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and leave a like on the video if you're enjoying the content. All support is very much appreciated. So Christopher Vorster, I hope I said that correctly. Christopher Vorster, Pendles for Laird, Edwards for Jeffrey. I like those trades. Good. Yeah, Laird. I'm so surprised you don't people that don't have Laird because he's owned by so many people and he hasn't dropped below 720 all year. Yeah, they're great play to bring in. As I said before, 9 of his last 10 games have been over 115. And yeah, this will be the last 4 weeks. We could probably join him as defender because he'll definitely be a midfielder next year. So, yeah, and then Edwards to Jeffrey, it's a good option. James Peating, I'm probably rathering over him because Peating's been good in the VFL. But if you want Jeffrey instead, then go for that as well. He obviously kicked 9 goals in the VFL last week, so not a bad option to bring in. A lot of 170k guys coming in this week. So it's like you don't really know which one's going to be the best one. Peatling has got the better record in the VFL. But you've got like Josh Honey for Carlton as well. You've got Eddie Ford for North Melbourne. You've got Nathan Krueger now for Geelong. You've got a lot of guys coming in. So, yeah. So Ryan, thanks for tuning in, Ryan. So he says, Cunnington to Took Miller sounds good to me, mate. Yeah, does sound very good, mate. I know that you sort of half given up in a way. But yeah, Took Miller, enjoy him, mate. I wish I had Took Miller on my side. You never know. I could bring him in if Stocker did really, really well on my bench and I wanted to just go someone up on my bench and Taranto up, and I just thought, stuff it, I'm just going to bring him in. So Stephen Sexton said, sorry, I missed that. Had connections issues. Did you say I should bring in Marshall? That's so good. Yeah, I think Marshall's a good option to bring in. He's the most trading player this week, 584K. I think the main question is like, do you rather Marshall or do you rather side bottom? And that's a good question. Side bottom with the mid roll is really good, but I think that Marshall with that sort of good insurance in case a Gorn or Grundy get injured. Hopefully they don't. Touch wood, they don't. But or if you've got Sean Darcy in your ruck as well, or Riley O'Brien, if something happened to them, good insurance, right? And I'd probably prefer Lloyd for the 100k more if you're looking at anyone. But Marshall for 584k is a great option. I would still rather him over guys like Sarong and Prestia and Schoenberg, like I talked about before. Yeah, I think Marshall's a great pick to bring in. And again, another player that's in the mix. I still haven't even figured out my trades. I'm going to have to figure them out. So on the written version of this, so if you want to check out the written version of the article, sorry, not the article, the weekend forecast, make sure you go on DT Talk, links in the description below for that one. So Art says Marshall and Whitfield or side bottom and Lloyd. I think there you go. You go your Marshall and your Whitfield. I think Whitfield is the better player out of all those four. And as I said, Marshall and Sidebon, I think it's a bit of a coin flip. And I think Marshall with the insurance with a ruck and having him in your forward line is good as well. And yeah, Whitfield and Lloyd, I'd rather Whitfield, and then Marshall Sidebon's a toss, so I'd rather the Marshall and Whitfield option. So Harry said, for me this week, I think Sidey and Lloyd will score more because matchups. But for the rest of the year, I'd say Marshall and Whitfield. Whitfield, Port, Marshall, Carlton, Sidebottom's got West Coast, and Lloyd's got Essendon. Yeah, you're probably right with that. You're probably Lloyd and Sidebottom score more. So if you have to win this week, you might go Lloyd and Sidebottom. But if you're wanting to get the better players, I think Marshall and Whitfield are the better players long term. And then James says Harms for Whitfield or Bramble for Heppel. I think you go Harms to Whitfield, to be honest. Bramble's doing all right. He's making a lot of money. I think he's still got a very low break even. Actually, what is Bramble's break even? So Bramble's break even at the moment is 12. So if he keeps scoring his 70s, he'll be 500k in a couple of weeks. So I don't think you can move on him yet. And what's Harms been doing? I don't think Harms been doing that great. I think Harms been getting your 60s and stuff the last few weeks. So Harms the last couple of weeks. So Harms has got back-to-back 62s. He got 62, missed against Hawthorne with the ear infection, and then got 62 against the Bulldogs last week. So yeah, I'd be trusting Bramble over Harms now. So I'd be going Harms to Whitfield if you can afford that. So I'd definitely be doing that. Any more questions? Yeah, we got one. So Pav Thiwala, again, I think I've said it previously. I've got that correct, but I hope I've got that correct again. He said, "Hey mate, trades for this week. First option, Penderbury to Marshall, and then Cunnington to either Oliver, Fiorini, or Guthrie. So out of the three of them, Guthrie, Fiorini, or Oliver. I think I said this before. I think I literally said this at the very start, but I would prefer Oliver over Fiorini and Guthrie. If you're looking to upgrade him, if you're looking to upgrade Fiorini and bring someone in to get like a Took Miller later, maybe. But I'd personally prefer Oliver. And second option is Pendlebury and Cunnington to Rich and either Heppel or Zeeble. I'd go Zeeble over Heppel. So Pendlebury and Rich. Pendlebury and Cunnington to Rich and Zeeble, or Pendlebury and Cunnington to Marshall and Oliver. I think I'd prefer Marshall and Oliver. I think Marshall and Oliver. You get the big gun in Oliver, and you get Marshall's good underpriced option, and Rich and Zeeble can get you 80 to 110, but I think Oliver's the better player out of those. So I'd go that. So there you go. Trades for me this week at the moment. I've got Stocker or Harry Jones to Peatling or Jeffrey, and then Pendlebury to Lloyd, Jeremy Sharp, Ryan Marshall, and still Sidebottom of guys I'm looking at as bringing as well. So that's it for the video. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Turn notifications on so you miss when I go live. I go live every Friday at 4 p.m. my time, so 4:30 for most people in Australia. All social media links in the description below. The DT Talk written version, the weekend forecast is the link for there is in the description as well. The DT Talk YouTube channel in the description below as well. So make sure you go and subscribe to them for all the podcasts in the video version. And Adam, cheers, mate. Thanks, mate. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you for everyone tuning in live. If you've got any other questions, hit me up on Twitter or Instagram. Links again for those are in the description below with your questions before lockout, and also question in the comment section below here or in the comment section, the written version. So I'll get to answering them before lockout. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. So good luck for your first week of fantasy finals. I'm out. Cheers.